This is Canada Reads American Style, featuring two friends who love Canada Reads and Canadian literature. Welcome our host Rebecca from Michigan and Tara from Ontario.
Hi everyone, it's Rebecca, and Tara and I are going to talk about memoirs today because a couple of weeks ago, I think she is the one who mentioned that we should do this, and we kind of thought this is a really great topic since we both have discovered fairly recently, I think, that we just really love memoirs, and it's one of those things where you don't even realize you love a certain genre until it comes up. And so anyway, we're going to let Tara start with her first one.
Okay. Yeah, Rebecca, it's funny you say that. I also didn't realize how many memoirs I've read in the last 2 or 3 years. When I
Mhm.
started going back to choose which ones I wanted, I was like, I totally forgot about that. Oh my God, I love that book. It was a really fun journey back to pick out these books.
Cool.
So I'm going to start with one that I think was from one of my first memoirs that I may have read. I really love memoirs by female comedians or humorists.
Well,
And
that's
I'm going,
interesting.
yes, yes. And I'm going to go with her most recent book. So this one was published in 2021, and it is Broken in the Best Possible Way by Jenny Lawson. You've read that one, right?
No, say it again. What's the
Oh,
title?
Broken in the Best Possible Way by
No, I
Jenny
don't.
Lawson. Oh,
I don't even
maybe
know who she is.
I could have sworn I told you about her. Okay, she
Oh,
is
maybe you did. You could have.
um is she from Texas? I think she's from Texas. She is, so she has a blog and she's on Instagram and she is flipping hilarious. She has, I think, at least 3 books out, and they're all memoirs in essay form. And a lot of them cover she suffers from depression. So her books, they bring you along on a journey of her mental and physical health. Like it's
Hmm.
you're seeing it, and they're very heartwarming. Sometimes they're a little sad because she tackles a lot of different topics that aren't, they're not cheery topics, but at the same time, she makes you laugh. And as someone, I am very fortunate. I do not suffer from depression. A little bit of social anxiety, but that's more social awkwardness, I'll be honest. So
Hmm.
I'm very fortunate in that way. So she tackles subject matter that I don't have firsthand experience with.
Yeah.
But I feel like I more insight through her writing. And then she'll flip it and she makes me laugh because she also collects taxidermy, especially like taxidermy that's dressed up in human clothing. I think is amazing. She is she is brilliant. I There's one essay in this book in which she talks about how she loses a shoe while she is wearing said shoe. She loses it. Not once, multiple times, different shoes. It cracks me up. Like I cannot be driving. If I like to listen to the audiobooks also of her books because she reads them herself and I love her voice.
Oh,
And I
cool.
can't drive while I'm reading her books because I am laughing and crying because they're so funny or else really touching. So,
Okay,
yeah.
I just looked her up to see what you're talking about, and
Mhm.
you've at least I don't remember you ever mentioning her because I am looking at the covers of her books and they're
Yeah.
hilarious. The
Oh
covers
my
are
God.
hilarious.
Yes.
And I don't even know who this person is. It says she's an American journalist and a blogger and
Yeah.
author. So I'm totally
Cool.
adding her to my
Oh,
to be read list because oh my gosh,
yeah.
I don't know anything about her.
You have to. You have to. And then her husband Victor is like in the background of all throughout her whole books. He's just always there, and he's kind of like the uh, almost like her touchstone
Hmm.
that keeps her grounded.
Hmm.
But he's a little wacky too, as the best of people are. So like he'll just like she'll say something, and you're like, oh, Victor's a little wacky. Like it's just I love it. And if you go on Instagram, she shares wonderful videos of her cats at times and her pets. She's an amazing person.
Okay, thanks for sharing this because this
Yeah.
is completely new to me, and I'm actually really excited now to
Yeah.
check her out. And she's got quite a bit there that she's written, so I cannot wait. So
Yeah. And
great.
she owns a bookshop in Texas as well.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
How has she never crossed my awareness?
I
That's
don't
so
know.
bizarre.
Like, I could have sworn I've mentioned her to you, but who the heck did I talk to then? That's
Might have been, yeah, it had to be someone else because usually when you mention
hmm.
something, I do try to look up the titles of the books or I add them to my to be read list on Goodreads. But yeah, I don't, all of this looks so unfamiliar to me. So
Yep, you have to check
wow,
her out. You'll enjoy her.
cool,
Yep.
cool. 100% I will. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, what's your first pick?
So my first pick is really dedicated to you.
Oh, aw.
Because one of the things you do, which blows my mind, and I think you should explain why you do this, but you have been reading some American political
Oh, yeah, yeah,
memoirs.
yeah.
And first I'm going to let you say why you do it, and then I'll explain which one I picked.
Okay, okay, this is kind of cool. Okay, so I got fooled by my dad. He tricked me. I read a Hillary Clinton biography. I think it was earlier this year or the end of last year. It's the great big one by Carl Bernstein. Is that his name? I
Yeah, I'm not
think.
even. Yeah, I think it is
American author.
Bernstein.
I think
Yeah.
that is. I can't remember the name of
Yeah.
it. Anyways, I'd been over visiting my parents, and my father had this book, and he gave it to me, and he's like, "Oh, you should read this, and we can discuss it." And I'm like, "Oh, well, this is amazing," because my father never wants to discuss books. Like, we're very different people, and
Mhm.
I'm like, "Okay, I'm not into politics, but if he's read this book and he wants me to read it." So that we can then have a discussion. I'm like, game on, I'm doing this. So it's a pretty intense book. It was a very thick book with very small print, but I'm like, I'm doing this, baby. I'm doing this. I read it. I finished it. I actually enjoyed it. I learned a lot.
Mhm.
He never read that damn book. Excuse my language. I found out.
I love
I was
that.
telling my mom, I'm like, I'm almost finished this book so I can talk to him. She's like, well, he didn't read that book. He's just passing it on to you because he doesn't want to. And I'm like, God darn it. I'm like,
I think that's great. But
so yeah,
because you and I check in with each other regularly to say, "Oh, what are you reading?" or whatever. And when you told me you were reading that,
yeah,
I thought, "Wow, that's really impressive because I will never read those books." And I started thinking about why wouldn't I? And I think it's because American politics are just so tough now, and
yeah,
I just feel like I just can't. I'm inundated with it every day, all day long. And I thought, I just don't think I can read about it, even in a
yeah.
memoir or even a biography, as Carl Bernstein's was. What was the other one you read? Because you'd read another American politician,
Oh,
right?
I'm bringing that to the table today. So I'm going to
Oh,
sit
okay.
on
I'll let
that.
you.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
yeah.
All right. So the one I want to mention then is actually
Yeah,
not technically a political one, but it sort of falls into that category. It's
yeah.
Becoming by oh, for crying out loud.
Yes, Michelle.
Michelle Obama. I was trying
Yes.
to look for my list in front of me. Okay, Becoming by Michelle Obama. And the
Yep,
thing is, how can we not all love Barack and Michelle Obama?
yep,
We will never in my lifetime see another couple in the White House that are just as awesome as those two are. And
yep,
so I really wanted to read her biography or her memoir because everybody was just raving about it. So I read it last year, I think. And first of all, I love Chicago. It's one of my favorite places on the planet. So just reading about where she grew up and how she grew up and her family dynamics and everything. And then when she met Barack, I loved every last word sentence in that book. It was so
yeah,
uplifting. And in fact, my mom listens to audiobooks. She's legally blind. And so I got that for her as well. And she really loved the Obamas. So she loved it as much as I did. And that's why I say, I don't think anyone can read this and not just absolutely fall in love even more with her and with the two of them and the family they raised and stuff. So I 100%, if you haven't read it, please put it on your list because it's
yep.
just phenomenal. She's an amazing person. Yeah.
I agree. And her new book is coming out soon too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of, I think, about hope or something, and I thought,
Mhm.
"Boy, I really need that," because as I recently did in a post, I had read a book where I said there was hope in the book, but I said, "I feel like I've lost my ability to feel hope." And I was
Yeah.
listening to something yesterday, they said something like a sign of death is like the loss of hope, and I was like, "Oh,
Oh.
man," like,
Oh.
it's kinda that's where I'm at, and I
Yeah.
talked to my sister, we talk a lot about politics, and it is really hard because I want to be hopeful, and especially after I read that quote,
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
"Shit, man," I wanna be hopeful, but I don't know if it's my age or if I'm just tired and worn out or if it's just everything here, the politics are just so awful. I can't quite figure out what it is because I never felt that I wasn't a hopeful person,
Mhm.
but I think her book, yeah, I definitely am going to read it, and I know that I will feel better having read it because she and her husband obviously are all about hope
Yeah.
and accomplishing great things. So, yeah.
Yeah. Good choice. Good
Thank
choice. I
thank you.
agree full on. And now guess what I'm bringing to the table, Rebecca? Because I
Must be a
think we
pl
have a little synchronicity going on. Is that the word? I hope so.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this book, I finished it this morning, and it is A Promised Land by Barack Obama.
Oh my
Yep,
gosh, you finished it. Oh
I
my
finished
gosh.
it.
Wasn't it like 1,000 pages or some crazy thing?
It's 700,
Yeah.
700 very intense pages. But,
Wow.
so that's when you said Michelle's book, I'm like, "Yes." I am, like, so excited that we have both of them on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So this I don't think I would well, I do, I love them. I do love them. So
Yeah.
I don't know, but the Hillary Clinton book led to me reading this one because my back to my father, tricked me into thinking he wanted this book, and I gave it to him for Christmas last year,
Oh, how
and he still
funny.
hasn't read it.
Oh my
Anyways, but my
gosh.
mom and my my mom and I believe my aunt have both read it. So then they passed it on to me, and I have read it, and I loved it. So my weird little obsession with American politics continues.
Mhm.
Not in a great way because it's very frustrating at times to read, as it
Yeah.
was with the Hillary Clinton biography, and then with his memoir. American politics is very frustrating, as you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
And I was even thinking because you've read both of those, and I was thinking too, would I read like Canadian political memoirs or biographies? And I
mhm,
thought, yeah, I would because and I think it's because it's not my area of expertise. I would
yeah,
probably do it. Like I would read about Justin Trudeau. I know he has a lot of pros and cons about him and
yeah,
stuff. But I would also read Wab Canoe. I love him.
yep,
And Jasmeet Singh, I would really be
mhm,
fascinated by his life. So obviously, I want people that are politically liberal. That's who I'm going to read about. But
yeah,
I thought, yeah, if there were current ones that really talk about the state of Canada's politics, like fairly recently, I 100% would read them. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, yeah. Well, this one I thoroughly enjoyed it. There were times when I felt overwhelmed by it because he's a very detailed writer,
Yeah.
and this only covers his first, like his campaign and his first 4 years.
Oh my lord.
Yes, so he even tells you right at the beginning, he started writing it and it was too long, and he's like, "I'm splitting it up." Like, he's like, "There will
Wow.
be another," it sounds like. I can't find any information on it, but apparently it seems like he has intentions to write about the next one. So, but it is so good. It is so good because, well, one, he writes with warmth,
Aw.
humor, honesty, sincerity. You can tell that he appreciates the position that the American people put him in.
Mhm.
Like, he took it so seriously and did the best that he could. And he had a lot of roadblocks that we
Yeah.
didn't even know about. Like, it's crazy, but it's so good. And I have this now even more insight to the workings of the
Yeah.
American political system. I still don't get all of it, and a lot of times he gives a lot of detail about the why they would do something for the economic reasons or political reasons, and they were a little over my head because it's just not my
Yeah.
forte or my area of interest. But in the end, I got through it and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I love because what you said you do is you read your nonfiction kind of in the morning, like
Yeah.
before work and stuff. And so I kind of think I might try and do that. So I would have to buy the book because I would never be able to finish it with
Hmm.
enough time with a library hold on it. So I would have to purchase it. So, but I kind of maybe I will read his book because I just 700 pages though.
Yeah,
It's like Lord Almighty, man.
it's long, but the last, I'm going to say maybe 20 pages were mainly concerned with when they caught bin Laden. And
Oh.
it's fascinating. And I, even knowing the outcome of it,
Hmm.
it was very stressful. And I was
Yeah.
like on the edge of my seat going, oh my God, I hope all the Navy SEALs are okay. And that, oh, what, like, and I'm like, okay, Tara,
Wow.
calm down. You know, everything
Yeah.
happens. But it was so good.
Well, and I will mention too, you and I talked about this because I mentioned it. There's a biography coming out about Ted Kennedy. I don't know if
Hmm.
it's next year. I think it's next year. And I did put it on my Goodreads list to be read because, and again, it's because of you. I never would have ever considered reading it, but the review already and the description of the book sounds so fascinating
Yeah.
about Ted Kennedy and how he took over kind of being the patriarch of the family after the other ones were murdered and stuff. So I did put that one on my list as well. And I think that one's also a very hefty book, but I
Yeah.
think I'm going to start with the Barack Obama book. I'll try it. I'll try to do it like you do, like spend a
Yep.
certain amount of time every day and read a little bit and see if I can get through.
Yeah. It's worth it. He
Wish me
mentions
luck.
Ted Kennedy. Good luck. He
Yeah.
mentions Ted Kennedy several times. He was a big Ted Kennedy fan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know because I've always been a bit of a political junkie. And so my version of Ted Kennedy was always that whole Chappaquiddick thing and the,
Hmm.
that
Mine
whole
too. Mine too.
controversy. Yeah. So I didn't realize how respected he was over time because all the stuff I would read was everybody dragging that back up again, which I'm not
Yeah.
saying that they shouldn't. I don't know the full
Yeah.
story of it and how much was true or not. But anyway, yeah. So I am interested in reading that, but I think I will tackle Barack Obama. I think
I
I will
think you
purchase
should.
it. I will do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Book
So
number two for you.
my book number 2. So this one's a little bit older. I'm gonna say I don't know how many years old this is. I should have looked it up and I didn't. But okay, it's called Flash, The Homeless Donkey Who Taught Me About Life, Faith, and Second Chances by Rachel Ann Ridge. And when I developed my just fascination with donkeys because of the donkey sanctuary in Canada,
Yeah.
I came across this book and it's really about Rachel Ann and her husband were just starting like a design company to help with like interior like paintings and wall art and things like that when the economy kind of took a dive. I don't know, I think it was 2008 or something like that. And they were really stressed because they were on a ranch in Texas and they thought, "Oh my gosh, how are we going to support our 3 kids and everything?" And they were coming home one night and there was a donkey in their driveway, very long driveway, and they couldn't move him. So they literally, her husband spent hours trying to move this donkey out of the way. And they thought, well, we'll just put him in the pasture and then we'll find out where he belongs. And the sheriff told them, no, sometimes people just dump their donkeys. So they
Weird.
kind of adopted him. Now, this is a book that is Rachel Ann and her husband, they are Christian. And I say this because, and I'm just going to put my own personal opinion out here, but in the United States now we have Christo fascists. So she and her husband are not those people. They
Okay.
are Christian in the good sense of doing right by people and reaching out and all the things that people of faith
Hmm.
can be the good side of it, where we go,
Yeah.
wow, that's really amazing. So for those of you who are just totally not into religion, this might not be a book for you. But if you, I would say, have spirituality or a sense of faith, it's so beautiful because each section, each chapter of the book is basically how this donkey taught them lessons that helped them navigate this really tough time in their lives. And Rachel Ann is just a beautiful writer. She wrote a follow-up book called Walking Henry because they adopted a mini donkey for Flash because he was all by himself, and donkeys really need to have companions and everything. But anyway, I love this book so much. I used to, when I was a working librarian and working library director, I would recommend this book to everybody, and everyone who read it said they absolutely loved it. And it's just a really beautiful memoir of that period of time in her life where she needed something and Flash just magically showed up. And she's on social media, so you get to regularly see her out in the pasture with Flash and Henry, and she feeds them and they're so sweet. I mean, anyway, they're just a lovely, lovely family.
Okay, my final one I've chosen. I'm going to be purposely vague about it because I don't want to ruin anything. It is called Run, Hide, Repeat, a memoir of a fugitive childhood by Pauline Dakin. And it reads like a psychological thriller. And I had to keep reminding myself that I was reading a memoir because it reads like fiction.
Ooh.
It is, yeah, and it is a fascinating story. I don't want to say anything about it because I just don't want to ruin the it's part of the reading experience. But it is a really fascinating memoir that you would swear, like the first, I don't know, it's been about a year since I read it. First 100 pages, I kept going, this cannot, what is going on here? This is insane. It is so good. It's
I
really
remember,
good.
I remember you telling me about this one, except that you didn't really tell me much about it for the very
Yeah.
reason that you're saying. And so, I think that one's actually on my to be read list as well.
Yeah. I'm looking at the book leaf. Is that what it's called? You know, the interior cover of the book, and they give a
Yeah.
little bit of spoilers in the beginning of that. I don't know if I would read that
I
if I were you.
hate when they do
Yeah,
that. That's
I'm
why
like
I don't
looking at
really
that.
read
I'm like,
those.
no, I wouldn't read. Just kind of pick it up and be ready for a ride because it's pretty cool.
Believe it or not, again, some
What?
synchronicity here.
Oh my gosh.
Because the book I wanted, and I'm going to read just a little blurb about it because I'm like Tara in that I don't want to give anything away too much.
Yeah.
Same kind of thing. So the book I want to talk about is The Pale Faced Lie by David Crow.
Yeah.
And it says here, growing up on the Navajo Indian Reservation, David Crow and his 3 siblings idolized their dad, a self-taught Cherokee who loved to tell his children about his World War II feats. But as time passed, David discovered the other side of Thurston Crow, the ex-con with a code of ethics that justified cruelty, violence, lies, even murder. Intimidating David with beatings, Thurston coerced his son into doing his criminal bidding. David's mom, too mentally ill to care for her children, couldn't protect him. And let me tell you, this book reads, you can't put this down. It's probably like your title as well, I'm going to assume.
Yeah.
Don't read the book jacket because it gives away to me the big part of the story, which is like, I was reading the book, I kept going like, wait a minute, there's this one thing I need to know. And he wasn't saying it. And I was like, damn, he better say it before this book ends. And of course he does.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, oh my gosh, like do the math, you know?
Yeah.
It was just amazing, this story. Yeah. And I am excited to tell you that I did connect with David and I do have a date to talk to him and interview him about the book. And so I would say before Thanksgiving, I'll have a podcast with David.
Awesome.
Discussing this particular book. And I cannot wait because he is really active on social media. And one of the things he does, which I love, he goes back to where he was as a child, literally goes and videotapes and says, this is the house that I talked about here, or this is where the house used to sit. And this is where the, Navajo reservation is. I mean, he goes back and he shows you in video. And it just blows my mind. He is, this story, the purpose of his life is really, I think, to tell this story. It's just amazing. So, yeah.
Yeah, that one's on my list. I'm going to be reading that one soon.
Yeah, he's an incredible person and what he survived. And I think that's the thing when you talk about childhood trauma and how people survive and thrive is just I don't know how some people do it, to be honest
Yeah.
with you. So
Yeah.
yeah. Now, the next thing we're going to do, because Tara had a great idea to talk about what book we're looking forward to reading, what memoir we're looking forward to reading. Do you remember that?
I do.
Okay,
I
good.
do. Yep. No,
Good.
no, I do. Yep. Yep.
Okay. So I will let you tell us, ta-da, what are you looking forward to reading?
Okay. Mine is an older,
Ooh,
it's a classic, I believe, and one that I've known the title. If I didn't know anything about the book, but I've known about the title. It's just a phrase I think that we all know since I was very young. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou
I've never
or
read
Angelou,
that.
sorry.
Yeah, I've
Yes.
never read that
Yeah.
either.
No, me either. And like that phrase, we've known that phrase for like,
Yep.
well, how old is the book? I don't even know. I haven't looked it up, but I'm like, and then earlier this week, when I was thinking about what books I'm going to bring to the podcast when we record it today, I was listening to another podcast and they started talking about this book. And I was like, Tara, that's the book that you have to read. That's the memoir that you have to read. And I'm like, there it is.
That's a great one, and I've never read it, and I'm going to read it as well.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yep. I'm going
I
to
can't
check
believe.
right now
Yeah.
to see
Okay.
how old it is.
I think was it the
I
80s or
think
was it
it's,
earlier than
yeah.
that? 70s? I don't know when it was. Are you looking it
Sorry,
up?
I am, but I should have had this done before. I apologize.
I know. I do that all the time. I'm looking
There we
things up
go.
while we're talking. So
Here it is. Here it is. And apparently, I actually haven't read any Maya Angelou,
I
but
haven't
she
either.
has, I think, several memoirs,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
1969. Yep.
Okay. See, there's
So,
no excuse for me not to have read that one. So good
no,
Lord.
yep, this is one I should have read too.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And then hopefully in the future for a future podcast, you might mention that and kind of
Yeah.
what you thought about and stuff. That'd be cool because I'd
Yep.
like to hear that. So
Oh, I should read one of her poetry books along with it. Do a little pairing. Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
the one I want to mention, and it was really funny because I had another one on my list, and then I read about this because I didn't even know it was coming.
Mm.
And I do want
Oh,
to
so
read
it's
a
a new one?
yes.
Oh.
In fact, it just came out a few days ago.
Oh.
So it is, and I am going to read the little blurb about it because I have to, because this
Yeah,
is
okay.
why I want to read this particular memoir.
Okay. Let's hear it.
It is called The Extraordinary Life of an Ordinary Man by Paul Newman. And it says in 1986, Paul Newman and his closest friend, screenwriter Stuart Stern, began an extraordinary project. Stuart was to compile an oral history to have Newman's family and friends and those who worked closely with him talk about the actor's life. And then Newman would work with Stuart and give his side of the story. The only stipulation was that anyone who spoke on the record had to be completely honest. That same stipulation applied to Newman himself. The project lasted 5 years. And then this is a Goodreads thing, and then I skipped
Yeah.
the middle part, and it just says perhaps the most moving material in the book centers around his relationship with Joanne Woodward, their love for each other, his dependence on her, the way she shaped him intellectually, emotionally, and sexually.
Oh, that sounds fascinating.
The concept of
Yeah.
having others tell your story
Mhm.
and being completely honest, I just cannot wait to read this.
Yeah.
It's just so unique. Such a cool concept.
It
Yeah.
is. It is. Because it's always like when we read memoirs, you are getting a story, a person's story from, and it's usually them or else like a, ghostwriter, but they're
Mhm.
still involved in the writing process.
Mhm.
And you can be as honest as you want or can be,
Mhm.
but there's always still an element of storytelling to it, right? Like,
Mhm.
and of the person of how much they're revealing and stuff. But if you have the person and then other people at the same time telling the story,
Yeah.
yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, because I kind of want to hear, like they said, they talked to his family, so I kind of want to hear about what his kids might have said, what Joanne
Yeah.
said about him. I just think that's really kind of fascinating, and I haven't read any reviews of the book yet. I'm hoping that it turns out to be as amazing as I would like it to
Hmm.
be. But I definitely am going to read it, and I will actually purchase that one as well because otherwise I
Nice.
probably will have to wait too long to get it. So yeah,
Yeah.
so that's my can't wait to read completely opposite of my Angelou, but but still, I like the concept of what he
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
So yeah,
Well, that's the wonderful thing about memoirs is they're all memoirs, but there's like such a scale of what's
yeah.
in there. Like, it's the scale's not the right word, but you know what I mean? Variety. That's not the word I'm thinking of, but but that's essentially what it is.
But it really is, because I have to say, when I was growing up, I wasn't necessarily a big fan of biographies, because I always felt
Mhm.
like the person telling the story may or may not really have an insight into that person
Yeah,
completely, right?
yeah,
But I don't know if anyone's ever read, Bob Dylan, who I like, um, wrote his first memoir, and I think there was supposed to be 3 or 4 or something, and I keep checking, and I don't think he's written a follow-up one. But they also said, when I read it, it's really odd, because it's his they said he just made stuff up. He decided that, even
yeah,
though it's a quote, nonfiction memoir, he just made some shit up.
yeah,
And he did it, like, out of sequence, and so when you're reading it, you just kinda go, "It's just Bob Dylan. What can you
yeah,
say?" Right? And I've
yes,
always wondered, like, the people who read it, who know him best, maybe went like, "Nope, not true. Yep, true, not
yeah.
true," you know? But I still read it, and I kind of enjoyed it and everything, because it was just a wild ride, but I don't think he ever followed up. So I do think
Interesting.
yeah, and I do think that that's what we love about memoirs, is you just
Yeah,
learn something about someone who may or may not even be in the public eye, right? Because
yeah,
we've read a
yeah,
lot of stories about people who aren't famous, and they're just
yeah,
telling us about their lives and experiences.
yeah. Well,
So
and
yeah.
when we read fiction, we're reading someone's story, and that's what a memoir is, right?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
not fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, so Tara, thank you so much for saying that we should do this. I thought this was a really fun one to
this was
think
fun.
about, and I agree with you. We both have probably read a lot more than we even realized when we
Yeah,
started to go back and look at our list. So I really enjoyed thinking about memoirs today.
yeah, me too. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you for joining us on our bookish journey. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing Canada Reads American Style wherever you listen. You can connect with the podcast and Rebecca on Instagram at Canada Reads American Style, and with Tara at On a Branch Reads. Until next time, keep reading.